welcome to the Flame and Fiber podcast. My name is Barbara. You can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Diva S. And I want to say welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the new subscribers. I've gotten lots and lots of new subscribers in the last week and a half. People who have found me through Leslie, I'm quite sure, of the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast, which we all love. She and I are co-hosting a Craft From Your Stash knit-along, craft-along. Probably shouldn't have called it a K-A-L. I probably should have called it a M-A-L or a C-A-L for craft-along. But we're doing it for the whole year. She and I both are having a no-buy yarn year. She did it last year. But somehow she managed to end up with more yarn than she started with, even though she didn't buy any yarn. I do not anticipate that happening to me because I don't have the sources of yarn that she has, and so I am assuming that I will be stashing down my stash, knitting down a little, excuse me, I have hiccups, a little bit of crocheting down, but not much, and spinning down, although I don't have any spinning today. For those who are new, this is called the Flame and Fiber podcast because my other hobby, which I have been kind of hibernating from, is lamp working, where I melt glass on a torch and make beads and head pins and stitch markers and things like that. So Dennis did remind me that I haven't had very much flame in my Flame and Fiber podcast lately, and I have been having the urge to get back out into my lamp working studio. So there could be some lamp working in the near future of this podcast, but not today. There won't be any spinning today either. So anyway, I want to say welcome, and welcome back to the people who have been coming in the past. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for all your kind messages and comments on the YouTube channel, and especially thank you to those of you who have joined the Ravelry group and introduced yourself. I know there are some people there that I have not responded to yet, although I probably shouldn't say that because I'll probably respond to y'all while I'm uploading this video. So by the time you see this, I will hopefully have responded, but I'm so glad to meet you and to know a little bit about you, and thank you so much for letting me know who you are and for joining the group. We have a lovely group, and now we have a new year-long knit-along. Last year we did a Year of the Sweater knit-along for the whole year, and last week I announced the winner, and she got in touch with me, and I mailed your package, Karen, and Mary, I mailed your package too. So while I was at it, I'm such a procrastinator. I'm drinking coffee and not a fancy knitting mug. I got this new, my travel mugs were not working for me. I was getting a plasticky smell, so I splurged and bought myself a new travel mug, which is now holding coffee. I am not traveling, as you can see, but I did make the coffee some time ago because then I had to go take a shower. I had to fix my hair, so I didn't want my coffee to get cold. So anyway, I'm drinking coffee. But I did mail packages this week, so that's good. The other thing that I forgot to do in the last podcast was I had wanted to pick a pattern prize winner from the Year of the Sweater chatter thread, and I forgot to do that, but I did it this morning, and I asked Siri to pick a number, and I had to ask her 3 times because the first 2 numbers she picked were me. I guess I chatted a lot. What can I say? But the third person she picked was not me. It was Maureen0722. Maureen. And Simply More. So Maureen, message me on Ravelry with the name of a pattern that you would like to be gifted. It has to be giftable and a $10 limit. But I would love to send you a pattern to thank you for your participation in the Year of the Sweater knit-along. So we are doing Leslie and I are co-hosting the Craft From Your Stash craft along in 2019. It started January 1st, and it's very simple rules. If you've started it this year and you're using stash from last year, yarn or fiber, then it qualifies. To get a prize, you need to be a member of my group to get a prize from me on Ravelry, and it's a Ravelry, and that's where the prizes will be picked from. And Leslie has her own threads and her own group, and everybody should be a member of her group and watch her podcast and put your finished objects in her thread as well. Poly dipping is encouraged. As many knit-alongs or craft-alongs as you can use your item for, then that works for us. So those are the rules. It runs to the end of the year. And let's see. I will be drawing prizes periodically, both from the final finished objects thread and from the chatter thread. And then there'll be a big prize drawing at the end of the year. As I said last time, the prize will come from my stash, because that's where prizes come from, and I'm not buying yarn, so I won't be buying a prize. But my stash is up on Ravelry. You can look at my stash. I have a really nice stash, so don't worry. You'll get a nice prize, I promise. Okay. So, I think I'll start talking about my knitting. I have a finished object. Well, I have two actually, but I have a finished. This is my finished, not too much sweater, and it was designed by Hintern Stein. I'm putting it up there. It's got a really just nice little interesting detail, stitch detail going down the arms, and going down the back, and going down the sides. And I really, really, really like this sweater. I had an idea to do this because I had these beautiful, beautiful yarns from Chili Knits. They were a gift from Connie. And, you know, I had one skein of each of her, I didn't have a sweater's quantity of anything. It was one skein. But they were so beautiful, and the two colors, oh, I'm going to sneeze. And I brought tissues. Okay. If I actually sneeze, I will edit that out, I promise. So I had a skein of Magic Garden, which is what is at the top, and a skein of Crazy Fruit, which is what's down here. The Crazy Fruit has the orange in it, and really a lot more color than the Magic Garden. This is a DK sweater, so I held it double, and I kept a little bit of the Magic Garden out so that I could go back and put in the crew neck. Now this pattern also has a turtleneck, which I'm tempted to make. I loved knitting this, and I intend to make another one at some point. So anyway, I started with the Magic Garden held double, and then I faded in one strand of the Magic Garden and one strand of the Crazy Fruit for a little while, and then I did true strands of the Crazy Fruit. And when I got to where I split for the sleeves, I did some math calculations to figure out, because it was important to me that the sleeves and the body match in terms of the color blocking. Oh, that's a little blown out, but you can see what I'm talking about. So once I split for the, once I split for the sleeves, I went into one strand of Crazy Fruit and one strand of the body color, which is Cloudborn Wool Fingering Twist in the Slate Heather colorway. And so I split what I had left of the Crazy Fruit to make sure that I had enough for the sleeves and the body so that they would match. And that worked out. I was very proud of myself. And very, very happy with how it turned out. So it looks a little bit, you know, so I've got this yoke, this bright, beautiful yoke, but not, the whole sweater is not these amazing, crazy colors, which I would love. I'm sure I would love it, but I probably will wear this more. So this finger is fingering on the body too, so I held it double as well. Now, I knit this at the gauge on the needle size suggested by the pattern, which is very unusual for me because I'm a tight knitter, or I have been in the past. Now, this is a very solid fabric, so I probably could have gone up a needle size, and it would still have been, you know, perfectly fine. But I was looking for a warm winter sweater. We keep our house at 66 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm always chilly, and I was looking for something that I could wear in the house, well, and out, but in the house and be warm in. And so I'm not sorry about the density of the fabric. One thing, it feels to me like, and it won't be any shock to any of you, it feels like the superwash fingering that I have at the top is stretchier and looser than the non-superwash fingering. I mean, and you know, different yarns are going to be different. So the body feels much more dense and solid. I used quite a bit of yarn, so it's a heavy sweater, and I do feel like I may be getting a little bit of stretch in the yoke from the superwash fingering, which wouldn't surprise me and doesn't surprise me now that I think about it. But that's the only thing, and you know, and it's fine. And I am so happy with my sweater. I cannot tell you. Although I did, when I blocked it, I only left it in the water for a short period of time because the water got pretty gray. And I didn't want the bright top to be dulled by the gray water. So I'm going to have to think about how I wash this sweater when I feel like it actually needs to be washed rather than just wet. And so that's something I will be thinking about. But I am happy with the fit. I did the swatch in these two yarns. Just, you know, that's what I did. And I didn't swatch it in the round. And this is knit entirely in the round. It's knit from the top down in the round until you split. It's got a split hem, and then you knit back and forth. And you knit back and forth for 2 seconds at the back of the neck. But, so I didn't swatch in the round, but I got the same gauge, which is interesting because I was thinking that my purl stitches were looser than my knit stitches, and so that might throw me off. I love how it fits me. I'll put a picture here of me in purl, a full-length picture of me wearing this sweater, and I love it, and I will be making another one of these. I have only made one other sweater pattern more than once for myself, and this one is definitely going to be made again. I'll do it in one color. I have several sweater quantities of DK that I could make this out of, and if I have enough, I might even make the turtleneck. And I think I would put the stitch detail that I really like. She only has it going down the back. I think I might also put it down the front because I really like it. It added just enough little something to knit this sweater that it was round and round stockinette, except for this little something every once in a while. It was easily memorizable, and I didn't have to think about it very much. It's just something a little different to do as I was going along, and I really, really enjoyed it. So I highly recommend this pattern. And let's see, what else didn't I tell you about this? I knit it on a size 7 needle, I'm pretty sure. And I'm just really tickled with it. Okay. That's it. My other finished object is a hat for Dennis. Now, if you've been a very long time viewer and have an amazing memory, you might recognize this hat. Nobody recognizes this hat. I knit this same pattern out of this same yarn for Dennis back 2 years ago. I bought the yarn. It's Lux Adorna Sport Weight yarn in the color Grizzly. 100% cashmere. I bought this yarn for Dennis at Vogue Knitting Live 2017. So that's 2 years ago, like next weekend. And I knit this hat up right away. I finished it before the end of January, and he's been wearing it. This is his, well, third winter. He wore it then, he wore it last year, and he's been wearing it this year. But it was really too big for him. Now, he has a really big head, so I think it's just that the cashmere is not as bouncy as other wools might be. So it stretched out, and it just wasn't comfortable on his head because it was too loose. So I washed it, and I didn't block it, and I tried to make it smaller, and he used it for a little while, and he said it really wasn't enough. So I re-knit it, and the original hat I knit on a size 4 needle, and this hat I knit on a 1.5, which is a 2.5 millimeter needle. And if I can find it, I will put a picture here. I knit this hat off of the old hat, like the old hat was a sock blank, and I have a picture of the new hat brim sitting next to the old hat brim, and you can see the difference is amazingly huge. Now I had to guess when I got how much yarn to leave to do, because I was unraveling from the crown of the other hat and starting at the bottom of this hat. By the time I was ready to start decreases, I had a big strip of his old hat left, and I had to try to guess how far I could go. I did measure it, and I thought I measured 8.5 inches. I thought that's what the old one was. I thought that's what I did here. But this one seems a little bit shorter. It could just be that extra width ended up giving it extra length somehow. I'm not sure when he wore it. So he wears it with the brim rolled up. And he was able to roll the brim more on his old hat. So I ended up with like this much of the yarn left over. I didn't weigh it, but so I told him that I would take this back to the decreases, add another 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch. I think I have enough yarn for that, and then finish it again if he wants it longer. So this hat is a little bit on probation. Well, he says it's fine. He loves it. He wears it. I feel like it's on probation. I think that it's very possible that in a couple more weeks, he might say, oh, if this were a little longer, that'd be nicer. Now, I don't know where the rest of the yarn is, and I could try to find it, and I'm not sure where I would even look. But I'm cleaning stuff up. I might come across it. If I do, then I could make it even longer than that if I can find the original scraps from the original hat, because I'm pretty sure I had some. But that was 2 years ago, and I don't know where they might be. But I suspect I might be redoing the crown of this hat in the next couple weeks. But meanwhile, he says he's happy, and I'm doing him the honor of believing him until he's not happy anymore, and I'll believe that too. So this is my second finished object. And I posted this. Oh, I forgot to mention our Craft from the Stash Cal has a hashtag on Instagram. It's hashtag Stash Cal, STASHKAL 2019, Stash Cal 2019. And I posted on that saying, does this count? Because, it wasn't exactly in my stash. It was on his head, but Leslie says it counts. So good. So this counts. And, so my second finished object. The thing about this finished object is that I have knitted quite a few of these hats. I went to SSK last year, and one of the knit-alongs ways to earn door prize points was to knit hats for charity. And I knit I took 5 or 6 of these hats, not in cashmere, to SSK. So I've knit this pattern, well, this one twice, at least 6 or 8 times, and maybe for gifts as well. It's a nice pattern. Oh, I should mention what it is. It's called 2x2 by Anne Gagnon. I'll put it here. Sorry about that. And it's a lovely pattern, and I don't have to think about it. In the last couple weeks, I have been in a place where I didn't want to think about my knitting. Well, it's only been a week and a half since I podcast last, which is very unusual for me. I'll talk about that at the end of the podcast. But I didn't want to work hard. I finished this sweater, which was just, stockinette in the round. And I didn't want to think. And my socks, which I'm not going to show you today, were at the place where I really need to put the afterthought heel in, and my socks are true afterthought heels, so I'm going to have to snip and do that work, which takes brain power. I've only done it once or twice, and I'll need to look it up, and I'll have to think about it. And I didn't want to think about my knitting. And I got to a place I didn't even show you Isabel's sweater last week because I had been working on this so crazily and I hadn't really done anything. And I was at a place on Isabel's sweater where I had to think, and I didn't want to think. So I grabbed this hat off of the shelf, his old one, off the shelf, and I snipped here, I undid it, and I started knitting it again because I just didn't want to think about anything. So while I was still not wanting to think about anything, I decided to cast on my exploration station. I've been talking about knitting this for a very long time. This is Stephen West's beautiful shawl. You've all made one. I'm quite sure. I'm so late to the game with this beautiful shawl. But I have never done brioche, and brioche is on my list of things to do, and one of the panels on this shawl is a brioche panel. And I suspect there are quite a few people out there who learned to make brioche when they made this shawl, because it was a big hit. It was a mystery knit along 4 years ago, maybe 5, I'm not sure. And I didn't find out about it until well after that. I've only been knitting, it'll be 6 years in February. I signed up for Ravelry, and so I started knitting in January, and 6 years ago. So I'm having my 6th knitting anniversary. So I wasn't aware of Stephen West at the time and didn't know anything about his mystery knit along, but lots of people, I'm quite sure, learned about brioche doing this. Well, I bought yarn for this knit along, for this pattern 2 years ago at the 2017 Maryland Sheep and Wool. Dennis and I had gone to Barcelona that spring, and I had been inspired by, they have an amazing Catalonian museum in Barcelona where they have rescued medieval frescoes from small chapels and churches all over the country, where they had these amazing religious frescoes that were in these little tiny churches that were getting ruined by the elements and neglect, and because they're really old. So they, in the early 1900s, developed some kind of process where they were able to get the frescoes off the walls of these churches and preserve them. And so this museum has all these rooms that are in the same shape as these little churches and chapels rooms where these frescoes were. So they've been put on walls that, you know, mimic where they were when they were originally painted and made. Anyway, if you're at all interested in religious iconography and art, this is the place for you, because of course all the art in the medieval period was religious. And so, and of course these were in churches. So it's mostly full of religious stuff. But the colors that were prevalent at that time, that were used in frescoes, that survived over the millennium, were these 4 colors. And so these are the colors that I picked. This is my color number 1. Now, my yarn, I got this at Maryland Sheep and Wool. I was on the lookout for these 4 colors to make this shawl. So I've had these in my stash. I have never considered using them for anything else. They were always going to be my exploration station. Spirit Trail Fiberworks. Unbelievably gorgeous yarn, let me tell you. It is 75% superwash merino wool, 15% cashmere, and 10% Bombyx silk. It feels like a dream. It is a little bigger than fingering. It's 350 yards to 115 grams. So, and I love it. So the blue, the color blue of the blue is called Hannah Lee. Excuse me. And then I have a gold color, kind of gold color. Isn't that beautiful? The gold is called Scrimshaw. The red is called Ruby Slipper. And I have a gray, and the color name for that is Vortex. So these 4 colors I saw in all of these frescoes. And I'm sure it had to do with the pigments that were available for, you know, making frescoes. But the other thing I found interesting is while we were there, we went to the Picasso Museum. Picasso lived in Barcelona for some time. And these 4 colors show up in Picasso's work as well. Not all of it, but some of it. I was really struck by the fact that he had these same 4 colors. But he was living in Barcelona, and they had this wonderful museum. So undoubtedly he was inspired. I mean, obviously I don't know, but I'm assuming he was inspired by the same things that I was inspired by, which I think is really cool. So I started my exploration station. The blue is my color A. So that's the one that goes between all the different sections. The red is my color B, Ruby Slipper, Scrimshaw, and Vortex. So these are my 4 colors. I am so excited about my shawl. But, so this is a garter stitch. It's got some short rows. It's got some yarn overs, nothing fancy. So I decided I'm ready. Let me start my exploration station. And I have 1 more row of the blue, and then I start my brioche. Which is why I haven't been working on my shawl, because I don't want to think, and I'm really going to have to think about brioche. So I put this down. I do have this one little hole right here. I obviously had to think a little more about it than I was thinking, because I got to the end of my gray color and I had 2 extra stitches and I had a little hole. Now I was going to go back and drop down and drop the stitches down and fix this hole, thinking it was a yarn over and it would be fine. And then I looked at it more carefully and I realized I've been in this situation before where I saw a wacky stitch and thought, oh, let me go fix it, and drop down and ruin my knitting because it's not a yarn over. This is a short row that was made in the wrong place. I got confused about where I was, and I turned around and went the other way when I shouldn't have, and that's what made that hole. Now, it looks like, oh, I should have gone back. That's not much, but of course, it was a lot. It would have been a lot because that hole is down on, you know, down here. So I decided that I wasn't going to go back and fix it. I fixed the stitch count by doing a couple extra knit two togethers here. It will have a little bit of an impact on the shape of my shawl. It probably is a little curvier there than it should be because I have 2 extra stitches down here. But I removed them up here, so now my stitch count is correct and everything works out for the rest of it. And my plan is to go back to and just darn this hole when I'm done with the sweater. So that's my plan. So apparently I needed to think about it a tiny bit more than I was. I just got, you know, oh, let me turn around. And I did that. So it's interesting to see what kind of a hole a short row makes. All you designers out there. Now these are short rows where the short rows happened here, but then he's added 2 yarn overs on top of them to make the holes much bigger. So that's why these holes are bigger than that hole because of the way he designed it. But anyway, I got to the brioche where I'm going to have to think and watch videos and learn how to do brioche. And I stopped because I was there for the easy knitting. But I didn't have anything else easy to knit because I had to stop on my socks because I have to put in the heel anyway. But I thought if I'm going to have to think about my knitting, I can't work on my exploration station because I need to work on Isabel's sweater. Now, the other thing about the exploration station is there's a big make-along, new to you make-along that's being sponsored by like 15 podcasters. So I'm sure since you're a podcast watcher, you probably are quite familiar with it. And basically it's you find something that is crafty that you've never done and do it. Basically. So if you want to know more, and it's an Instagram, mostly Instagram make along with using the hashtag new to you Mal, M-A-L. And since brioche is new to me, that my exploration station qualifies for this make along. And so that is fun. My exploration station is in my Fawn and the Fox bag, the Fawn Knits podcast. I've had this bag for years, and this is a print, a wood log print that her husband does, and then she made them into bags. I don't know if he still does this or she still does this. It glows in the dark. It glows in the dark. Not that I ever knit in the dark, but it's pretty cool. So since I had to think about my knitting, I decided it's time I think about my knitting. So I went back to Isabel's sweater, which I have put in my beautiful bag that Megan made me, made by Auntie Nana. And it's my sparkly Christmas dogs. You can't really see the sparkle, but that fabric is sparkly. And this is such a lovely bag. I'm so excited to have it, and it's nice to have another Christmas bag. I have 2 sock Christmas bags, but this one is nice and big, and it is holding a sweater. It is holding Isabel's sweater. I am making Isabel this sweater. It's called the Dover Fell, and it's the child version. Now, I got a discount on the adult version when I bought this, and I'm so glad because I want to make this for myself. Now, this is a hoodie, and they don't really show the kid with the hood up, which makes me wonder a little bit because, you know, I mean, it's clear that this sweater is a little too big for this little girl because her sleeves are rolled up quite generously. But they do show a picture of the adult sweater. So it's going to have a pointy hood. It's going to be cute. And I'm going to make this for myself. You may get tired of seeing this pattern, let me tell you. But I am so excited about Isabel's sweater. One thing that I do when I'm doing a pattern I've never done before, and I get to a place and I read it and it doesn't make sense, and I get, you know, and I can't picture what I'm supposed to do, I get frustrated and a little mad at the pattern, which of course is ridiculous, but I need to, all I need is 10 minutes to let it soak in. I go back and read it again, and more often than not, it makes sense to me. If it doesn't make sense to me, then I have like emailed the designer for guidance, but usually I find you know, it soaks in and I figure it out. And that's what happened very early, because I don't think the pictures on this sweater are that helpful when you're trying to look at the picture of the sweater to figure out where you are and what you're doing. I didn't find the pictures that helpful. So it took me a while to figure out what I was doing. I'm making Isabel's sweater out of Flying Goat Fibers yarn. I got this yarn on sale at Yarn Box clearance. I used to be a member of Yarn Box several years ago. I started in 2014, I think. Very soon after I started knitting, I became a member of Yarn Box, and I was a member of Yarn Box for several years. So anyway, I got an email saying, hey, we're out of business. We got to get rid of our yarn. Everything's on clearance. They had already marked everything down, and then they gave me a 30% coupon on top of that. So I was able to get about $150 worth of yarn for $60. I got yarn for Isabel's sweater and yarn for Sammy's sweater. Sammy's getting exactly the same sweater. And I got 4 skeins of this for Isabel and 3 skeins of a DK for Sammy. And this is $20, you know, if you figure out each of those skeins is probably average $23, and I got 7 for $60. I figured out what I was supposed to do. I was all the way down here when you saw it last. So it just had the ribbing. And it was when I got to about here that I couldn't figure out what was going on. So this is knit, the body of this sweater is knit all in one piece flat because it's a cardigan. And it has this wonderful stitch pattern. She calls it a dot stitch. It's like a broken seed stitch that I really enjoy knitting, and I love the look of it. Even on this variegated yarn, you can see that pattern. And along where the zipper will be and along the pocket is seed stitch. And I got to here, and then, you know, she's talking about seed stitch, and I was confused, and then I realized there's an inch of seed stitch along the back on top as part of the texture in the back before the back goes into stockinette. And that's what threw me up. Couldn't picture what was going on because we were right around the place where I started doing the pocket. Now the first thing you knit on this sweater are these little pocket insides of the pocket, and they're on waste yarn, ready for you to go till you're ready to use them and connect them up with the body of the sweater. I am enjoying this so much. I love the texture. I just went on Ravelry and searched texture sweaters in my library because I want to make texture sweater. I want to make one of these for me. I'm making exactly the same for Sammy in a smaller size than this. It's going to also go pretty quickly, but I'm not convinced I'm going to want to knit the third one right away. And I try not to consider the fact that it might also be boring for you. Although it's not that I don't think about you guys and, you know, try to do, try to have an interesting podcast, but I don't want my knitting to be sort of governed by the fact that I do a podcast. Now, granted, if I was making 2x2 ribbed hats only for a year, I wouldn't watch me either. But if I don't make my own version of this sweater next, it's not because I think it's going to be too boring for you. It's because I think it might be too boring for me. Just putting it out there. I have a little bit more to go on the back, and then I will be able to seam up the shoulder seams. Now, so you work from the bottom. I can see this very well. You work from the bottom. Ugh, it's kind of messy. Work from the bottom up. You add the pockets. You have these lovely pockets. This is going to be like a sweatshirt, hooded sweatshirt. And then you go up the front, and you cast off the shoulder seams, and the stuff around the front here that has all the detail on it is on waste yarn, because that's going to go up into the hood. And so the back, I'm going to cast off shoulders for a while, and then the rest of it is going to be on waste yarn for the hood. Now the pattern wants me to knit the sleeve flat. And then, so there's the schematic. I'm supposed to knit the sleeve flat and then sew it in. I'm not doing that. I need to straighten up my space here, because somewhere here I have the notes and instructions for us doing a set-in sleeve from my class with Isabel Kramer at Super Summer Knit Together last summer. That's the class I picked with her, and she gives you the formula for figuring out if you have an armhole, which I'm going to have, then how many stitches to pick up and how many to pick here and here and here, so that you get a well-fitting, lovely sleeve, a lovely set-in sleeve, and you don't have to knit it flat. And then you just knit it in the round. So that's what I will be doing once I have the shoulder seams sewn in. I will be doing the sleeves and then go back and do the hood. I got a lot of this done in the last 2 days. This will definitely be finished by the time I podcast again. Whether I will do a little video of it before I mail it. I'm going to mail it as soon as it's done, because Isabel's living in Florida and she's not going to need this sweater very long. So the sooner I get it to her, the more likely she's going to get some use out of it. I will send them separately. I will send Isabel's when it's done, and then I will send Sammy hers when hers is done. Isabel gets a zipper, and Sammy's not supposed to get a zipper according to Isabel, because zippers are for big girls. But Sammy got a big girl bed for Christmas, so maybe she qualifies as a big girl. She's, going to be 3 in August. I think I might want to put a zipper on hers too, because these are going to be like sweatshirts, and I expect them to wear them like sweatshirts. And who doesn't love a zippered sweatshirt? I'm going to put a zipper in mine when I make mine. There you go. The Doverfell child version. I am so happy with this. And then of course I've got to stitch down the pocket, and I have a gajillion ends. This thing is so full of ends. So I'll have a lot of ends to weave in. But I am really, and I love the yarn. This is the Cory Sock by Flying Goat Farms. And I'm going to have to I have 2 more skeins. I'm going to have to wind it up, so I'll show you in its beauty here. So it's Cory Sock, Superwash Wool Nylon, colorway Valentine Blush. I've got a glare, sorry. Flying Goat Farms. And I'm really enjoying this. I'm sure I'm going to have leftovers because I have two more and I'm holding it double. But this whole sweater, I still have a tiny bit of my first two. I mean, it is tiny bit of my first two skeins. So I'm hoping I have some left over because when I'm done with all the sweaters, I'm going to make Isabel a pair of socks to match her. Although, maybe I won't do that. I've tried to make her socks and I never get it right. They're always too small. Maybe I'll make socks for myself. Maybe I'll do that. Is that like a selfish grandma thing to do? I'm not sure. Doverfell Child by, oh, and I didn't tell you who that's by Kristen Rengren. And it is, I have really, once I sat down and figured out what the heck I'm supposed to be doing, I have really enjoyed knitting that, I must say. And I submitted it to the New To You Mal thread or hashtag on Instagram because that pocket was completely new to me. And I was trying to think of other pockets that I've made. I made my Portage had a pocket. And I think that might be the only, this may only be my second pocket, and it's not like the Portage, and I really enjoyed making that pocket. And it's a new to me pocket. So I think that counts. If you're interested in the New to You make-along, you should watch Chevy Rell, go watch Chevy Rell's Stuff podcast with Chevy Rell. She is totally hilarious, funny, wonderful, lovely woman. The Crafty Toads are also a sponsor, co-sponsoring that make-along with Helen and Mary Beth from Toad Hollow. The Crafty Toads, the podcast is called The Crafty Toads. And Paige from Paige the Framer is also one of them. There are 15. And I guess the grand prize is going to be something from each of them, so it's going to be big. Go look at their podcast. It's their make-along. Leslie and I are doing our own make-along. And I really am enjoying seeing the finished objects and the chatter. Thank you, everybody who's participating in the Stash Cal 2019. Loving, loving, loving it. And thank you. It's going to be a fun year. It's so much fun to shop in I'm enjoying shopping in my stash. And the saddest part of it is that I keep finding new amazing yarns that, you know, I had in my hand for 10 minutes at the show I bought it at, and I showed it to you, and I put it in Ravelry, and I didn't touch it again, and it didn't sink in my head. So I am discovering beautiful yarn. Oh yeah, I forgot that I bought that. It's terrible. So shopping in my stash has actually been a lot of fun for me. I've been working in my room. My goals for 2019, I talked about them last year, and I'll give you an update. I worked in my room since the last podcast, and I took a picture. This is a picture of what it looked like on December 30th. This is before I had done anything. And then I'll put a picture. This is what it looked like when I podcast last time. I had done some work. And this is what it looked like when I walked in today. So I've made some good progress. Full disclosure, there are 2 bins of yarn. I put my sweaters quantities of yarn that I couldn't fit in here in. I have 2 bins of it. And those 2 bins are sitting in my guest room. They will be coming in here. But I'm sitting at a L-shaped table here that I've had in here forever. I used to work at home sometimes, and this was my office. And so I have bins underneath this. You know, it's a nice place to store those bins. Well, I have bins under here that I need to get rid of. I have a bin full of boxes. Do you collect cool boxes? I have all these cool boxes that I've had, some of them for years, because I thought, oh, these will be great to put a present in. I haven't used them. So obviously the boxes are going to go. And I have a bin of gifts that I bought because I bought something for myself that I really liked, and I thought, oh, so-and-so would like this, and I bought it. And then by the time Christmas came around, I changed my mind and got them something else. So I must have done that quite often because I have a whole bin full of brand new things that are gifts in my mind, that were gifts that were not given. But I don't give gifts anymore. I give very few gifts. And although I will confess, I gave Jason and Rich gift cards this year, and I pulled something out of my gift bin so they would have something to unwrap, but their real present was the gift card. And they both like what I gave them, so it's, you know, but so I have two bins under here that don't need to be under here for one reason or another. And so those bins will be coming back into this room. So full disclosure, but I felt so good making progress in this room. I'm almost ready to try to vacuum in here. And I was telling the ladies at my virtual knit night last night that I can't vacuum in here because I have a beater bar on my vacuum and there's little pieces of yarn all over my floor, which will get caught up in my beater bar and jam my vacuum. Can't really vacuum yarn with my vacuum. So I got some good suggestions from the ladies, and I will be working on that. So hopefully next time I podcast, I will be able to tell you I vacuumed. But maybe not, because the reason I am podcasting now, which is only a week and a half since my last podcast, and you can look, the last, you know, I've been going a week, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, or a month and a half, depending on what's been going on. But this coming weekend is a holiday weekend in the United States for Martin Luther King's birthday celebration. And we are going to Long Island to visit friends who have the day off. And it'll be a chance to spend a little bit of time with them. And we haven't seen them for quite some time. So we'll be coming home on Monday. And on Tuesday, I have to go up to my parents because my father's having an operation on Wednesday. My sister's coming in on Tuesday. She and I will be staying with my mother. My dad's supposed to be in the hospital 2 nights. So keep your fingers crossed. Hopefully all goes well. He was supposed to have this operation at the end of November when we were going to Florida, which was very distressing for me. But it turned out he had an asthma attack and something else going on, so that his breathing wasn't good, and it's still, I was there the other day overnight, and when he woke up, he was coughing. So hopefully they'll be able to do this thing with him now, because my sister's coming from Idaho to stay. And he needs to have it done, and he needs his breathing to be good. So for all those reasons, I'm hoping he's able to go have this operation on Wednesday. So I will be at my parents at least till the weekend, helping till he comes home and helping my sister get everything organized and be with my mom and all those things. So it just felt like it was going to be quite a while before I could podcast. And since I had 2 finished objects, I thought I might as well just go ahead and do that. And because so many new people have come, and I wanted to welcome you, and I'm so glad. I hope you enjoyed the podcast, and I hope you enjoy the Craft from Your Stash knit along, because I'm really enjoying it a lot. I'm really looking forward to figuring out what's my next thing and picking the yarn for it. But so that's what's going on with me. I'm looking forward to the weekend, and I'm a little worried about my dad. I did want to give you an update on, I showed you my room progress. The other thing is I've been keeping my log, and I've decided to continue using this little book that I got from Megan. I've enjoyed it. I've kept it up, and I was able to just toss it in my knitting bag when I went to my parents overnight, so I had it with me so I could keep track while I was there. The other book is bigger. I bought the 5 years, I forget what it's called, 5-year book that the Crafty Toads talked about, where it has relatively small pages like this. I mean, it's a bigger book, so you have a little bit more room, but it has January 1st for the next 5 years. And so when you're doing the second year and the third year, you can see what you did that day 2 years ago, which is a really cool idea, and I really like it. But I got the idea for this when I got this book in my Advent from Megan, and I started with this, and I think I'm going to finish out my year with this, and I'll use that 5-year book next year and do 2020 through 2024 in that book. But meanwhile, I'm going to keep using my little book as long as Pearl doesn't eat it. So anyway, I have been happy with how my 2019 is proceeding. It's the 17th. Did I say that? This is January 17th. I've done really well for 17 days. Let's see how things are going in August, because, 17 days. Although I saw somebody, I found a new podcast because of this New to You Make-Along. The original podcasters who came up with this idea are the sisters who do the Cocktails at the Coop podcast. And I'm sorry I've forgotten their names already. I watched it yesterday. They were so cute. And I was going to say, I think I saw it on their podcast, but now that I say that, I could be wrong. Anyway, somebody I watch. Well, I like the Cocktails at the Coop a lot, so I recommend their podcast. But I don't remember if it was them or not. Maybe it was two people. Podcast with two people, and one of whom hadn't made any resolutions, and the other one said that they had read somewhere that 80% of the people have already broken one of their resolutions in the first 2 weeks of January or something. So I'm past that. I haven't broken my resolutions yet. They're goals. They're not resolutions. They're goals. Same thing. So I will say goodbye. Thank you so much again for watching. Thank you so much for the comments and the subscriptions. It's been such a thrill to have you all come. I won't. Dennis heard about every one of you. Oh my gosh, I got another subscriber. I know. But what are you going to do? It's exciting. So thank you for coming and joining me, and I hope you enjoyed the podcast. And I will talk to you in a couple weeks. Hopefully my dad will be in good shape and able to get along without anybody staying there with them. And I'll be home, but if not, I will maybe record a few little things, but I can't edit or upload from their house. So I don't think. Well, I know I can't edit. I probably could upload, but I need to edit. So anyway, I will say goodbye. I hope you have lots of time to do the crafting that brings you joy.